Done our dough, chaps. We've done our dough.
Hello, welcome back to Odds, Week 2. So let's get straight into our recap of Week 1's betting. We'll start with the favourites that we looked at. So Flemington, we went 5 from 9. Totally wrong about Sneaky Sunrise. That was a good win. Merzam, we were right about. That battled. Craig, we were wrong about. That won. It did have a very good run, one out, one back, and it wasn't super impressive the way that it won for $1.60 favourite. So that'll be something to monitor to see how that goes against better opposition in the future. We were right about Electric Impulse, but I mean that started at 550, so there's no glory in saying that was possibly going to go under at those odds. Ironically, the horse that I liked, Jenny Jerome, ended up starting favourite, which I wouldn't have expected. Wrong about Veloci Caro, still a good second. Right about King of the Castle. That was actually surprised me that it got backed in even more to $3.10. I thought that would have drifted to about 5 or 6 in such an open field and lost, but it was backed into $3.10 and lost. Georgie Get Mad, right about that, ran third. Lady in Pink, also right about that, but that ran third, pretty open race. And then last race, wrong about the Black Cloud. I really thought that would go under, but that was a good win. So 5 from 9. Correct about favourites at Flemington. Ipswich, it was a bit trickier because a couple of the races there were dual favourites, but first race, Payline, we were right about, although, I mean, it had a tough run, so yeah, it probably actually was quite okay, but from that barrier, it was probably always going to get a tough run, so it was good to see, well, good from our perspective that didn't win. Wrong about Atmosphere, though, that won well. Race 2, Shasane, right about that just sort of battled on, didn't really challenge. Right about Tenzing, then races in the middle, all wrong. Rock Ribbed, Orton, and Hedged, all in a row. Bang, 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 winners that we were wrong about. Then in that Ipswich Cup, I was very happy that, I wasn't happy that Lindsay's lost, but it was an open race, and so I wouldn't have backed that in a million years. So right about that. Right about Watigos going down, and then in the last, right about Midnight in Tokyo, wrong about Party for 2. So 6 out of 11 correct. So pretty much both of them we were looking at sort of 50% saying the favourite will win or lose. And then turning the page in our trusty A4 exercise book, looking at Flemington first. Regal Lover, yep, no good, nowhere near it. We lost on the exotics. Race 2, Aberfeldy Boy, close-ish, but no good. Race 3, Rise at Dawn lost. Methuselah lost. Rise at Dawn was a decent placing though, so bonus bets back. Race 4 lost on Jenny Jerome, Subliminal. Race 5 lost on Veloci Caro, Inundation. Inundation was eased up early, so that was way out of it. Race 6 lost on First Accused. Then we had a winner on Let Ferrari. We got the Quinella in that race, which got back about $22, 25% of $78.30 for the tab dividend. In the process, though, broke one of the cardinal rules of betting, which is that if you're going to do certain numbers for a Quinella or a trifecta, you've got to do it for both. You can't just pick one and not do the other. So those numbers did get the trifecta, and it paid quite well, paid $1,400. So that was a costly oversight. And then that was race 7. So then race 8, huge payout with Aztec on the trifecta, not for us, but just in general, like a huge payout. Aztec State, Dream All Day, Rezone, trifecta paid $10,000. This is what we all strive for, these huge dividends. And it really was crazy at the end of the day that Dream All Day, for having two runs, 2 good placings, second and third, from a good stable, clearly a horse that is going places. But then in a field like that, it could just sort of get forgotten about and start at 150 to 1. Unbelievable. Like you can find horses at 150 to 1 across the country that have got, terrible form, no chance. But then in a race like this where you've got a lot of good horses, it's not that difficult for one of those good horses to turn the tables on another. So if you're going to bet on outsiders, it's good to bet on a good outsider in a good race. And yeah, opportunities there, but I didn't pick it. So we dream on. But Rezone was good, running third at 40 to 1, part of our Quinella picks. So around the mark there. And then in the last race, I actually really thought that Marble 9 and Lynx were going to be if I had to say which of the horses I picked would win for the day, I would have thought it would have been one of those ones, but they were both poor. Lynx was on that inside down the straight, the worst part of the track. But even still, it wasn't really close. Marble 9, yeah, I was surprised there. So, and then going to Ipswich, Party Spirit in the first race, no good. Immortality was scratched. I See You Coming was a good second. The second race, we just stayed clear. It was too much of a raffle. Third race, Madame Odette was a good run, flying home. This was another oversight. I talked about that Quinella, Madame Odette, Cocoa Brew Express, and Blazing Boots, and they ran the trifecta, but didn't put it on in the $50 worth. So broke another cardinal rule of stretching the budget too far, stretching the resources too far. So learnings for next time. Race 7 Ipswich Cup. I was glad to be vindicated in this race, that it was just so open. I mean, Red Wave paid 20. They were basically all the place getters were 20 to 1. So yeah, super open race. Race 8, Wrong About Fancify, Lost in Transit. They were nowhere. At Wits End was in our selections. That one paid 10. That was good, but didn't get second. It needed rocketing by. And then last race, Party for Two, good solid placing, but didn't win and didn't see Wallenby coming. So overall $50 outlay. Got back around $32, so 18 units down for the day. $6.50 in bonus bets carried across to this week, which we will use and try and do some damage with. We also didn't get to see the Rosehill second to last promo in race 8. The whole meeting was obviously abandoned, which I put just a small note in the show diagonally to say that was not on. So let's see, there's got more rain scheduled this week. Let's see how that goes. And then looking at the football, we had our 3 selections, and Carlton, big winners. Tick, that was awesome, $1.60. Essendon just getting there, covering that minus 29.5 line. I mean, in that fourth quarter, I thought that they were probably going to win by about 10 points. And to see those goals from Durham and Heppel in the dying seconds, or dying minutes, to get to 30 points and get us that leg was fantastic. And then Freo, pretty routine. They sort of, after those first 2 Suns goals, they took control, and it was a reasonable margin without being too close, but without being too emphatic. So 3 legs in, we got the multi, $69.70. So for our $20 outlay. So overall, we spent the 70 and got back 102 around. So around about a 45% positive return on week 1. Just to cover off the end of those football games. The Brisbane Port result, I wouldn't have seen that coming to win by that much. So glad to have steered clear. Great to see the Lions win. I'm really hoping that Port and Geelong get booted out of the 8 as soon as possible. They're just clogging up spots. They're not going to do anything in the finals. So yes, let the Lion train roll on and on. Hopefully they can get into 4th spot, which my AFL ladder predictor app believes that they can. Sydney against GWS, routine 5-goal win. I'm still happy to not have dabbled on that. I think Sydney will lose soon, and I don't really want to be there when it happens, like the guy holding the in the unlucky chair when that happens. So happy to avoid that. Melbourne Kangaroos, that was wild. I mean, boring game. Melbourne 11 goals to 4 up, and then it just comes to a shuddering halt. And when North went forward in that final foray, and the ball was around that 50-metre mark in the air, and those 2 players I think one of them touched it and sort of pushed out the other guy's hands, or they could have done better and probably won the game. So glad to not be involved. That was just heart in mouth sort of stuff. Essendon, as we mentioned, that was great. We roll on, still in the top 4. Essendon supporter here, as I mentioned last week, and then Freo. Happy with the returns from week 1, and we will roll on into week 2. All right, welcome to week 2. We're going to preview the full Caulfield meeting, and then we're going to do selected races in Sydney, in Brisbane, in Adelaide. I've still overcommitted to too many races, but it is what it is now. So kicking up with Caulfield, initially this was a much more interesting race because there were some outsiders that were sort of going to make the pattern, how they were going to sit quite interesting, but they've been scratched. So I still think Blue Renegade is too short at $2.50. Like, it's 2 from 4, that's good, but just where it's going to sit, like looking at the speed map today, I think that Supervise on the inside is going to kick up and hold it out. I'd be imagining First Settler might get caught a little bit wide, and then some of these first starters are going to settle towards the back. I think Landmark could get a very good run behind the leader. I'm assuming that being Caulfield, it will be a bit of a leader's track. That's always my default. I go into any Caulfield betting thing, it's going to be leader biased. Sometimes, 20% of the time it's a big run on track, so I'll be paying attention for that. But just based on this, I think that Blue Renegade might get a tough run. At $2.50 with 59.5 kilos, giving all these other runners 5 kilos, I don't want to be involved. So I'll be having something small on Supervise if it can lead and hold him out. And then in terms of exotics, I'm thinking a trifecta, Supervise and Landmark roving bankers, and then have the field to rove. Race 2, I don't think is the greatest race for opportunities. There is one in this that I quite like in terms of that it's going to go into bigger and better things. I think Jenny Pending. So I'll be having something each way on that. But I just think with Kin, like, it's hard to get enthused at that price, $4, when it's not a prolific winner of races, really. Like 2 from 19. I just think that in terms of Quinella, there's probably value in 1, 3, 5, and 7 in just boxing those. I'll be interested to see if Kin does win. If it's a run on track, Messignardi is very interesting. It'll probably become flying home from last, and starting from barrier 10, it's good. It can just slot straight back. Not a race I super want to be involved in for that one. Race 3 is more, well, again, I would probably say the same thing. I'd say it's not the best betting opportunity race, because anything really could happen. But similar print to race 2. I think the horse that will probably go on and be good out of this bunch is Fagan. So I'll be having something each way on Fagan. With Trocity being $4.40 fixed, unless it's a super heavy track, which I doubt it's going to get to that point by that time in the day, but on a good track, 4 starts for 2 placings, soft track, 8 starts for 2 placings. I just can't get, I know it's been close up lately, but I just can't get that excited at the price. I think there's a lot of outsiders, like Picaroon's value. I would even say Noble Knight, 1 placing from 5 first up runs, like at 125 to 1, it is quite absurd odds. So I'll be interested how that goes. And then there's just a bunch of others, like the Nephew, Gotta Be Savvy, targeted over longer. Some have had trials, more interesting than anything. So to me, something each way on Fagan, and then I'll sort of be interested to see if Picaroon can do anything at the odds. Probably still have something each way there on Picaroon. And then moving on to race 4, I think this is such a raffle. I really like Jabberwockies as a horse, and I usually always bet on it. I just don't know. I think it's going to get back, and which is never good at Caulfield, really, ever. So I just think that with these other ones, it's just such an unknown. How they're going to position, who's going to get the best run. And with Jabberwockies, the first time he'd sort of been up to this distance range, he lost by 5. So difficult, sort of a race to avoid, I think. So moving on, race 5 at Caulfield. I think this is an interesting race looking at the speed map. I think there's going to be a lot that are going to go forward. I think Shiva will probably be posted 3 wide from that barrier 15. Miss Winslet at 20 to 1 may get a very good run just off the pace with cover. And then I think Unconquerable will get a decent run as well on the inside there. Initially, I quite like Romantic Choice, and I still do. I think that it's great value at 20 to 1, but that could come across and be posted wide. I think there's going to be a lot at the back. I mean, Enna's Dream going back from that barrier could almost be sitting last. I don't know if that's the greatest opportunity at $5.50. There's going to be a clump there, Bossy Nick, Pharaoh's Daughter, Patchouli Dream, Tyless, in that clump at the back, and where they're going to sit. So I'm keen to have a bonus bet on Miss Winslet. I'm keen to have something each way on Romantic Choice and just hope that it gets a good run throughout. But betting on the favourite Shiva doesn't give me a lot of confidence that it's probably going to be stuck somewhere up the front. Okay, so race 6, Why Worry? Interesting runner, sold from Hong Kong, big leader. Extreme Flight won on a big leader bias track at Warrnambool during the carnival. I think Extra 2 is a good horse. Handled arrives to grip grade, which many don't. Sandpaper's got a poor winning strike rate, but a good second up. Big Watch. This is a horse I really like. Love the name, love the form. I'm going to bet on it today. I just think that it may not get the greatest of runs, but I'm just going to sort of still back it and hope. Its last 8 runs, it's either won or it's been within 2 lengths of the winner. So it's just so consistent, and I love that. Mars Mission, maybe. There's other ones like the Open. I just don't know from the barrier where it will go. Jewelry, good, but I think a bit too short. In terms of where they're going to sit, I think that the favourite Barraquil, which is really good, and I do actually like it. It might be a little bit short, but I think that will get a decent run behind Why Worry. I think Extreme Flight will go up on the outside. Extra 2 might be posted a bit wide, and it worries me that Big Watch might be behind Extra 2 and also be wide. The Open could slot in and get that good run, rounding the turn, peel out, and then there's going to be quite a few at the back. Capo Strado, Sandpaper, Jewelry, Sessions Road. There's going to be a bunch there. I also like Count the Beans. That's been transferred stables and is now in Victoria. It'll be interesting if it is a big leader track. Why Worry might just get a really good run. If Barraquil can come out from behind the leader in the straight, that just could be an easy win. I'll have it in exotics, but I'm going to stick with Big Watch and just sort of hope he gets a good run and can run well. Okay, so race 7. I think Namesake is a quality horse. I like you. There's a bunch that I like basically. Eugenius is good. Il Cubo, I do like. I think that he's going to get posted 3 wide. I've got a feeling. Rip Raw's good. Flying Fizz gets, well, depends on when the rain comes, but in theory it gets the dry ground that it wants. Out of Flying Tessie, who incidentally won me a really great quaddie on Caulfield Cup Day, I think 2008, when shocking one. It won the final leg, as the name suggests, flying out wide. I don't think it ever won another race. So interesting to see a horse out of Flying Tessie. I don't think Miss Rumbini is really any value at that 280. I could be totally wrong, of course, and probably will be. I just don't know whether it's going to get cluttered up by a bunch of other horses coming across from out wide. Gallant Prince should try and cross. Electrona will probably kick up and hold that out and lead. Triple Vision might be sandwiched sort of behind them with Rip Raw. Valois could get a good run, sort of in that maybe 3 back on the outside. Normally I'd be a lot more keen on Flying Fizz, but from barrier 1 I can really only see it sort of going back and being on the fence midfield, and I don't think that's a great recipe for success. But then for Namesake, who might be on the outside sort of there, if it is a bit of a run on track, that could be wide open to come flying down the outside, especially with that 3 kilo claim. So long story short, I wouldn't be taking Miss Rumbini. I'll probably have something small on Il Cubo, but I do still like Gallant Prince. I think even if it comes across and gets a reasonable run second, I'd rather be on that at 850. All its runs have been good. I think it's going on to sort of better things. So for me, Gallant Prince, and then some sort of Quinellas and trifectas. I'll do one Quinella where it's slanted more towards run-on horses. So 13 Regal Might, 14 Glenfinnan, 15 Socially Sassy. And I'll do a different one that just sort of goes along with the horses that I quite like, and won't worry too much about where they'll sit. So like Namesake, Flying Fizz, Il Cubo, Gallant Prince, and just sort of try and segment those a little bit. So then race 8. Not too sure about Fleetwood. It might be just a really good wet tracker, and again, like it might be drastically downgraded by that time tomorrow. But at 250 with the weight, I don't really want to take it. I think that Title Fighter's form has been really good. It might just not be a straight horse. The flops have been down the Flemington Straight, but it might just be a lot better around a bend. So at $23, I'm quite keen to take that. I also think Whistlefield, I didn't like this initially. I didn't think it was sort of that up to the grade, but it was good at Warrnambool, and barrier 2 lightish weight. And there's been early money for it today. It's going to be also about $23, but there's quite a lot of money for it today. So they're the two ones I want to go on, those two outsiders, Title Fighter and Whistlefield. Some sort of exotics around that. I'll be interested in how Fleetwood runs, but I won't be sort of holding on for that. I think Formoso down the bottom is also very good. So probably for me, Quinella around Formoso, Whistlefield and Title Fighter. And I'm interested how some of the others go, like Steel City, who's runs over 10th, spelled. Runs over 10th, spelled. They're trying to get it back on track. That will be interesting to see. That's race 8. Race 9, moving on. It's great to see Smoking Romans running. This is a real tough open race. I don't think Fujita-san should really ever start favourite. It usually only wins as an outsider. In a field like this, barrier 14, $4.80 against a really even field. I just think that's an absolute no value proposition. For me, I'd just take 1, 2, 3, 4, 11. I think they're the best chances and just take them as a Quinella. I couldn't pick out anything on its own. I don't think you can rely on anything singularly in this race at all. So it'll probably be more of a watch affair for me just to enjoy. Race 8, interesting. Sorry, race 9. No, sorry, race 10. Where am I at? Race 10, Caulfield. This is pretty open. Chorlton Lane's 230, and look, I can see why. It makes a lot of sense. I just don't know where it's going to. It's probably going to have to run on a fair bit. I'd prefer to take St Lawrence at 550 and use a bet token to get bonus bets back. Chorlton Lane just might run into some trouble. I'm thinking Quinella, St Lawrence, he's our Bonneval, Rheinberg. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I'll sort of be keen just to see how Chorlton Lane goes, but I won't be expecting a lot. Mr. Mojo Rising is there, fresh off helping us to get a Quinella last week, which was awesome. And then, yeah, the rest we will see. Okay, so Rosehill, another super heavy track. I like putt for dough, consistent, good barrier, good price at 11. I think for a Quinella around that. Conrad at 50 to 1 isn't a bad option with a 3 kilo claim. I just think there's a lot of value there. So Conrad, putt for dough. I also don't mind Herb, 14 to 1. It's got barrier 20, but it might be able to go back and get a decent run on. So I think those ones. Also, Cruel Summer, it's a good favourite. I think it's a very realistic chance at $5. And then maybe to throw in one other one. Maybe Life Coach. I think it's pretty even, so it's obviously hard, but I'd go with 5. I'd take those 5. Moving on to race 2. I like these early races at Rosehill just because of they're big fields throughout the whole day, but I generally do like these midways, these highway handicaps. So race 2, I'm quite keen on Magnace. I think it was a good win last start, 3 kilo claim. I really like the value there at $23. In terms of the favourite, Cranky Harry, barrier 20, $4.40 in such a big open field. Not for me. I think Shehab at 13, Soul Lady at 12, County Kilkenny at $19, Cooee at $23, and Magnace 3, 7, 12, 14, 15. I do like that. Shehab will probably lead, and very good form on a heavy track. And then also barrier 1. So there's a lot to like about that in particular, and then hopefully one of our other ones can run on for the Quinella. Race 3, I just think Father's Day is way too short. I know that the form is fairly good. I just think between 12 runs on slow and heavy and it's won 2 races, I'd much rather be on Naval Commission. 3 from 3 on heavy, such a lightweight, only 52 kilos from barrier 1. I just think you're going to see a great duel between those two, and I'd be loving being on Naval Commission with a bonus bet back. Ideal scenario. Okay, race 6 at Rosehill. I went through this whole field and I just think it's going to be a massive speed battle. I think South of India, the Escape, In Flight, Eye of the Fire, I think they're all going to vie for the lead, and it's going to create a real chaos effects. I couldn't really see anything that I wanted to be on. I saw that Disneck was scratched from a different race. Jambalaya is favourite. Don't really know if that 420 is the best value. Also Metallic Ruler has had very good form in sort of better races, so I think there's some value there. Currently $497.60 on the total. So that's probably, in the wash-up, probably a race to avoid. Race 7, again, I thought maybe there might be something here, looking at how the race might pan out, that you could sort of get some value on. I mean, Golden Path could be a decent favourite just because the race isn't overly that strong, but looking at it, I just didn't really want it to be too involved. Waterford, I'll be interested to see how it goes. Race 8, this I thought was in the same category where just too open. Initially, I thought it might have been a really good opportunity, but I looked at race 9 instead, and this is something I'm quite, I think is a good situation. Secret Plan is really good on heavy, and it ran a really good second at 50-1 in Queensland recently. Only just beaten by Watigos at the end. It had everything else covered, ended up running a placing. I think that Testator Silence is a good second favourite at $5. I think there's value there. I'd rather be on that than I'm in to win. Again, just so open, but I think place on Secret Plan, win or each way on Testator Silence, and then I'll just be watching some of the others go around. Junipal's 8 years old now, but does bob up every now and again. Raging Bull doesn't like it wet, but at 126-1, it'd be interesting if that pulled out a run. That sort of does it for Rosehill for me. Okay, so moving to Eagle Farm, I'm going to start at race 2. Depth of character is interesting. I know that it's had 2 very good runs in listed grade, and now it's dropping back to this sort of quality, and it's paying $230. On the one hand, you can make a really good case for it, but on the other, like in those races that it's started at 20-1 both times, and now it has to carry that burden of being the $2.30 favourite. In saying that it ran a placing in a listed race, so did Mistrustful. So it's not like Depth of Character is the only really experienced horse in that sort of high grade. I think it's a diabolical race. I think that these horses having only a few runs each is going to be a lot of improvement across the board. I think that the way that the race is going to pan out, Depth of Character not having that much speed could get caught back and wide and sort of be at the mercy of whoever's at the front. I think Miley is going to go up and take the lead on the fence. And I think Mistrustful is going to sit outside it. It might have to do too much work from barrier 10 to get into that position and be vulnerable in the straight. I like Julieta. It's funny, it's a horse that can either lead or can go back. And last start it went back, and it was so far back, and it made up. If you look at the ground that it makes in the straight, you see the orange colours, and you look at it and you think, how could that horse possibly end up running second? And it makes so much ground up. I don't think they're going to want to be in that position again today from barrier 1. I think they're probably going to sit behind the leader. I think it's great value at 34 and 6 for the place. So I'm going to have something each way on that. I think Depth of Character is going to be caught sort of at the back. Probably will be okay in terms of being able to get clear. But I just think a lot of these horses could improve and do something. I don't like Heinous at the 340. I think that's much too short. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that you could pick a lot of outsiders here and make a case for them, or at least just say they're a great value proposition. Okay, so Eagle Farm race 3. Mullane is $2.80 as the favourite, and I don't know how I can get that excited about a horse that's had 12 starts on a good track and never won. I just think it's even in the class that it's in with 60.5 kilos though, I just think that is not what I want to be involved in. Interesting here that Nanagai number 16 is making its return after 441 days on the sidelines. Won't be betting on it, but it was a good horse, and I'll be interested to see how it goes. I quite like Go Wanji. It's got a bad barrier, but such a good strike rate, 8 wins from 18 runs. I'm happy to be on that each way. I'll be doing a Quinella, Go Wanji, The Vowels, Pizarro, Devil's Throat, Tsunami Sam. I think that's a decent possibility. Mullane could win, but I don't really want to be on it at that price. Going to race 4, this initially looked like the exact kind of race that I'd want to be involved in. Country horses, all with good form, coming to the city, big field. I don't really want to be involved after looking at it. It's just too open. So many of these horses have great winning strike rates. The Carpenter as the favourite is so intriguing, having 4 wins in a row, all by huge margins. Good barrier today, $6, so very juicy. I just don't know how much work it's going to have to do in the lead with other horses competing with it up there. I think this race could be set up for, if not a winner from the back, just a few horses running on that might run into a place at big odds. So I'm going to have just a small something like $1 or $2 on Laurie, because I think from barrier 16 it's going to snag straight back to the back. It can sort of watch all the mayhem go on up front. And I think that may run on into a second or a third and pay 13 for a place. So I'm just going to do that and just watch with interest as to how the Carpenter goes, whether it can get things done. Good name. There'll be a lot of people betting on that just because they probably are a Carpenter and they will just be at the track and chuck 10 or 20 on it. So yeah, be a great watch, but that's what I'll do there. The next one, I'm going to skip a bunch of races and just go to the Group 1, Tats Tiara. This is, I mean, Bella Nipotina is the best horse in this race by a mile. And so you could say two things. You could say, okay, that's the case. It's basically level weights with everything. It's so much better than every other horse. The $2.30 is in fact actually really good value. Or you could look at it and say, okay, this is a huge, huge field. Bella Nipotina is from barrier 16, and there's an abundance of horses that are going to go straight back, that have got no pace. The only real horses that should go up and vie for the lead are Bubble Rock, Zoe's Promise, and Willinga Beast, and maybe Banana Queen if it goes forward. So it could be a race where a bunch of these horses are just at the mercy of a few front runners setting the tempo. With that in mind, I think that Bella Nipotina should try and go forward and just prove itself as by far the best horse in the race and win easily and add another Group 1 to its CV. So it is actually really tempting at the price because it's just these other horses aren't the type of Group 1 winner that is. I really like Roll On High as a horse. That was integral to a quaddy that I got on Melbourne Cup Day, where I had that. I took a few others, but that was my sort of standout bet for the day, and I was devastated to not be on it 2 runs ago when it won and it was over $15. I don't know how it's going to go in this meeting. From barrier 4, if it goes back, I don't know where it's going to sit. It could just be bundled up on the inside. I think Abounding's form has been fantastic. So close up in its runs and hitting top stride now. Barrier 17 is a downside, but at 30-1, I'm quite keen to have something either each way or specifically on the place for Abounding. And then I do like Bubble Rock. I think it was a good run when it ran third last start. The odds today, 20-1. In a race where there's not much speed at all, I can see that getting a good run and being hard to run down, but if it's got Bella Nipotina running it down, I don't think it's going to hold on. And I would have liked Comrade Rosa under different circumstances, but I think from barrier 18, that will go straight back. If there's no speed on that, this could be really up against it. So, yeah, Bella Nipotina could go up and sit 4th, but Bubble Rock will probably be outside Zoe's Promise at the front. Same as Magique should get a good run on the fence, close to the speed. Samana could get a bad run, could be trapped wide. Abounding could be too far back. That's sort of the vibe that I got from the speed map so far. So that does it for Eagle Farm. Let's have a quick look at Morphettville because I think there's a few interesting races there. Okay, so race 5 at Morphettville. I'm quite keen on Mintu Lee. I know it's from barrier 15, but I think it could go forward. 1 start for 1 win on a heavy. I think it's really, really good value. The favourite itself, Lingani, pretty decent. Same for Vintage Star, who's paying $6, and Stocker, number 10. So I think you can make a case for all of those. I'm just going to go with Mintu Lee. I like the form. Satosa romped in a trial, so that could be primed for this. 10-1, that could be something. I'm just going to do a big Quinella, Vintage Star, Brave Action, Karlasek, Mintu Lee, Stock A and Satosa, and just sort of see how that goes. But if I had to pick one, I would go Mintu Lee. But yeah, very interesting race to see sort of where they position themselves. Race 6, Don't Russia has had 1 run and it won, and it was 80-1, incredible, and now it's 12-1 tomorrow. I think that it actually could maybe get 2 in a row, so I'll be having something on that probably especially for a place, because from barrier 6 it should get a very good run and be up there. Open race, Omanyala, decent form. I couldn't really, even Quinellas I found it hard, so I'll probably just be interested to see how Don't Russia goes. Race 7, this is interesting. I quite like the bottom weight, Long Worry. I think that 16-1, that is a good each way bet. Great Maximus is a favourite, yes, you can make a good case for that, also from barrier 1. I also like number 1, Fly On By. So I'll be sort of sticking with those two favoured runners, Fly On By, Great Maximus with Long Worry and a Quinella, and then something on Long Worry each way. And then sort of a similar story in the final race, race 9. I quite like Dawn Burst. I think that the form's not that bad at 20-1 and offers good value. And then for a Quinella, I like Brave Star. I like Exalted Ruth at 20-1. I like Artillery with its only had 2 runs, but a 4th and a good first. Barrier 6, that's perfect. That's 8-1. Dawn Burst at 20-1. And Grinzinger Ace at 25-1. I think that's a decent exotic situation. So we've got the $50 to bet with. Scattered in, we've got those $6.50 worth of bonus bets from last week. So up on screen now, this is sort of what the conclusions I've come to. And again, it's spread over too many races, so I'm going to have to refine this down to get this where I'm sort of investing more on each race. But this is what we'll sort of generally do as a good spread. Lots of bonus bet back for 2nd and 3rd in there. Be interesting how Caulfield plays. As mentioned, I think it'll probably be on pace. And then hopefully Sydney goes ahead being a heavy 8. And I'm really excited about the Tats Tiara. I do want to see what Bellingham is going to do, whether it can win, just, blow them away, win by 5 lengths. But yeah, this will be an interesting spread of bets. Okay, so AFL round 16. So after the success of last week, let's see what we're going to do this time. Brisbane, Melbourne. I mean, this just should be an absolute cakewalk. Poor D's after having some bad losses lately, falling in against North, and then it might just be the toughest of all assignments going up to face a rampaging Brisbane. So I don't have much hope for them, but because they've been so flaky, even at that big price, could they cover a line? Maybe. Could the Lions actually pump them by heaps? More likely. So just going to tip Brisbane and move on. North versus the Bulldogs. This is interesting because North have been 54 points up against Collingwood. Did go on to lose, but I mean, even getting that position is amazing. And then they've wound back a huge margin, sort of done the reverse, wound back a huge margin against the D's and just fallen short. And then they play tomorrow, and then the market's got them at $6, as if they're just back to that bad form that they've had. I think this is a real opportunity where people are just going in thinking, oh, okay, the Dogs will win at Marvel as they usually do. I think North could. This is just a really obvious value proposition. So I think they're going to cover a line there at the very, very least. I think they'll definitely get within that 30 to 40 points of the Dogs, if not win. So I certainly wouldn't be taking. I know the Dogs have got Norton back and Sam Darcy back, but I just saw that Bontempelli's under some sort of injury cloud. So yeah, I would definitely tip the Dogs, but I wouldn't have any confidence really with that. Sydney Freo, as I said last week, I feel like Sydney are sort of due for a loss soon. I don't know when it's going to come, and it could be. This is a game where no one would expect them to lose at the SCG. Freo have been pretty decent across the board the whole season. It would be funny if it was tomorrow. And as I also said last week, I don't want to be relying heavily on Sydney that much, so I'm just going to sort of leave that one. Getting into this next round of games that are all quite even, this sort of brings up one of the things that I've noticed with footy betting in particular, is that a lot of the blowouts you see where it's above 30 points are actually in games where the odds before the game are sort of like $1.80, $2 or $1.90 each. There seems to be some sort of psychological thing going on there where the teams go in with an equal chance, but then once they sort of get blown away, they can't really come back, whereas teams that go in with as big outsiders have got sort of no pressure on them, and they can sort of fight and get close. So Gold Coast, Collingwood, Adelaide, GWS, Geelong, Essendon, St Kilda, Port. I'll be interested to see how many of these are over 30-point margins. The St Kilda Port one probably less of a chance, I think, because Port have got so much going on internally that they've got actually a lot to play for. They might capitulate and lose, but I think that they're sort of seasons on the line, coaches on the line. That's not one where I think the margin is a great play. But rewinding back to Gold Coast Collingwood, initially at the start of the week, I was very keen on the Gold Coast heading back to the home deck where they play probably their only good football, fresh against a Collingwood that's sort of scrounged wins and done enough. And I know they've got key players back, Myercheck and Pendlebury and all these guys, but they might just be off the bye vulnerable. So initially I was thinking, oh, okay, cool, Gold Coast are a good bet. Then Collingwood have burned me so many times just by rising to the occasion, finding a way to win. So comparing those two things, it's probably another game where I don't want to be too involved, where I've had too many different thoughts. So I think I'll leave it. Adelaide GWS, again, this is another one I don't want to be involved in. GWS are better. They've sort of had better form lately. Got some good name inclusions now. Caniglio, Peatling. They're sort of hitting top stride, but then Adelaide can be good at home. They also have some good inclusions. I'm going to hope that GWS win, but no, I don't want to bet on it. Geelong Essendon, again, I'm an Essendon supporter, probably too biased. I really want us to win this. It's such a pivotal game for the 8, for us to kick Geelong out of the 8, but probably too many biased feelings there. St Kilda Port, I just had this vision in my mind that St Kilda, were on such a downward trend, and they were really good against the Lions, and they haven't really had any. I mean, they had a good win against Gold Coast at home recently, but Marvel hadn't been the fortress for them that it had been. Port are going in with so much of a need to win, but a few injuries, and the team that they've got maybe isn't the best team they've had, so they could come out and backs to the wall and beat a bottom 8 team like St Kilda and sort of get their season back on track. Or they could just fall apart at the seams. I don't know. I don't really want to be involved in these games where there's sort of too much of an unknown. Richmond Carlton, it should just be a routine win for Carlton. I mean, I'd love to see Richmond win and sort of cause some mayhem, get people microwaving their memberships, put a bit of a blip in the Blues finals run, but it's probably more wishful thinking than anything else. Final game, West Coast Hawthorn. I actually do like this as a betting proposition. I think that Hawthorn are due for a loss soon, and West Coast were good last week against Essendon. Harley Reid and Tim Kelly and Gaff, especially the first two, huge inclusions back at home. I think this is great value for West Coast. So overall, we're going to stick to the same strategy as last week. We'll do a 3-leg multi. Bonus bets back if one leg misses. So I like Brisbane to win. I like North with a 30.5 head start at $2.25. I think that's awesome value. I think they're going to cover that easily. And then West Coast with a 23.5 point head start at $1.46, I think is great. So multing all those together, $3.71, $20, around $74 return. That is perfect for me. We avoid a lot of those 50-50 games that I don't want to be involved in, and I'm really keen to see how North and West Coast are going to go. So that's footy covered for the week. Racing's covered. Bets are on footy, AFL Round 16 covered. We've covered racing for the week. Let's see how it all goes. This is going to be a good day of racing tomorrow. I just hope that Sydney goes ahead, and yeah, let's see what the wash-up is from week 2.
Done our dough, chaps. We've done our dough.